Hello again, Struck Club. Today I'm bringing you an info video about Torchlight 3 and its latest update called Gear and Goblins. A nice, funny, decent name. So with the Gear and Goblins update, we're marking the first major patch after the game launched. And this update is coming to Steam, Xbox One and PlayStation 4 on October 29th, which is today, the day I'm making and uploading this video, and the Switch is to be determined, so Switch players are not gonna get this update right away. So first we could start with a message from the developers, from Bean, the community manager, and she's saying, "Happy Halloweenish Torchlight family, this spooky season had us eager to bring some fright into Torchlight. We're busy working on some larger content updates, but in the meantime we wanted to drop a quick update with some fun new content for the season, along with some much needed bug fixes." So some of the main highlights of this patch are the new legendary items. There are 8 new legendary items in this update, 2 new weapons, the lightning bower and the sword of the Lost Legion, and also the Ancient Ember gear set, which is a new legendary set of 6 pieces like all other sets that can be used by every hero, and it can only be found in the Fazir's dungeon. The other major highlight would be the 3 additional spooky pet variations. 3 new pet variations, Midnight Cat, Spooky Retriever, Dragon Link Spirit, are all waiting for you to rescue them in pet cages found randomly on the frontier. Look at them, they are so beautiful. Yes, they are. I can agree here with Beam. Scary 4 decorations. 6 new Scary 4 decorations have been added to the game. You can now obtain these from the random 4 decoration bags found in the existing contracts. 2 decorations have been added to each contract. These new additions are a perfect fit for those who like to keep their space a little more on the macabre side. Okay, macabre, I'm not sure how to pronounce this, but yeah, there's 2 freshly added Fazir dungeon affixes, Anchored and Essential. With Anchored it says player and pet movement skills are disabled and speed shrines do not appear. Essential is a positive one that says the same, not the same, the following: monsters can drop essence and the boss drops a legendary essence. So basically, as I've explained in a previous video, this means that as you're fighting through the map, the monsters would be dropping not just items but regular essences, and the legendary ones would be able to drop from the boss at 100%, I guess, because it doesn't say it can, it says the boss drops a legendary essence, meaning every time we finish a map like that, the boss should be dropping 1 legendary essence. At least that's how I understand it. So yeah, I hope you are happy about this. Another major highlight, you can buy Respectacles now. Respectacles would cost 2,500 gold coins, and they can be bought in every town at the potion consumables vendors. There's a lot of bug fixes and skill updates, and there's also upcoming updates, content updates that they're working on. So I will start by covering some of the things I wanted to highlight personally, some of the things that stand out for me. So let's start with the patch notes as they are appearing in the website. So I'm gonna start with general. There are some PlayStation dummy patch notes with generic test replacements. There are some additions to a company called Landbridge to the credit screen, and there's additional information about the build and environment to the in-game menu. And in shipping builds, this information is hidden, and you can see you need to do a certain combination and hold those keys for 4 seconds. On keyboard it's 1, 2, 3, 4. In gamepad it's click left thumbstick plus click right thumbstick and hold it. So let's move on to performance. For the performance, some of the things you would see, there's a lot of crashing, a lot of crash fixes, a lot of things that are fixing the server stability, and it's not just on PC but across platforms such as Xbox One and PlayStation as well. So I'm not gonna go through every single crash fix. You should be seeing those on your screen, and if you want to read everything in detail, patch notes in the description, and I might as well just post them on the comment section of this video for everyone to click easier. So there's been changes to the user interface as well, and the welcome screen art has been updated for a Halloween update. Certain mailbox items are no longer hidden on the mail reward screen as well, and other things UI general related, such as voiceovers, etc. For the wars. Then there's some changes to the minimap, some minor changes, couple of changes there I decided to highlight. Then there's some changes for the character creation, which I also decided to highlight some of those. Player pet names no longer checked for profanity, so you can make those weird offensive names on single player if you wanted to do so. And yeah, there's some fixes where certain things cannot be done, such as cannot revert prompt showing when changing difficulty on the character selection. There's some fixes for party, play and chat. You can see the details in the patch notes. I'm not gonna talk about all of those here. I'm not gonna talk about vocalization or gamepad changes in the UI section as well. So all of those fixes you can just see in the patch notes in detail. Now let's move on to environment. I'm gonna start with general environment notes, and there's shortened fields of unrest as there was a large section of this hub before the chasm, which led to difficulty finding the chasm. The density of monster spawns here also was leading to over-leveling for it to just take too long to clear on your way to the chasm when playing through the story. I actually loved how it was like that. I loved how I would end up a little bit over-leveled when reaching the chasm. I'm not a big fan of this. I preferred reaching the chasm when a little bit higher level. Now, see, this one is an interesting change here. Slightly lowered the XP to level from 2 to 3 and from 3 to 4 to more consistently reach a level as you clear these first dungeons. So that's not bad. That's actually a good change, and it could remedy in the previous note. Then they mentioned increase the amount of XP to level from 4 to 5. Okay, it's just one level, not so bad, but this was actually the level I liked reaching quicker, level 5, so I can get my mobility skill. So this was the level I really wish I would reach quicker. So yeah, the section after Den of Upheaval in Edgewood Bluff, the section at the beginning of Fields of Unrest, and to a lesser extent the invaded Travel Passage. Those are things that they're considering when making that change. Then slightly raised the XP to level from level 6 through 41 to more accurately accommodate additional XP from champions. Not a big fan of this. I enjoyed being able to skip some champions and just speed through the story and end up maybe only 3-4 levels behind my content. Now I would have to stop, and it's gonna take longer to complete the story and speed run it. So not a big fan of that. When you're leveling out, that's not the thing you wanna see. Okay, then they fixed an issue where the player may revive or warp under the map, especially with large monsters nearby. This was an annoying bug ever since the start of Alpha. I hope it's now sorted, as I would constantly end up teleporting underneath the ground when doing fights like Strong Tusk on a sharpshooter or on a disc mage with warp skills. So there's a lot of changes to portals. I'm not gonna talk about all of them. You can see them on your screen, and you can see I maybe might have removed some of those from my list, but everything's in the patch notes if you want to see the details. But yeah, you should see there's some interesting fixes regarding party behavior of portals, regarding phase beast portals, etc. and boss warps, and some mapwork seed portals were finally fixed. So you would be able, if you were unable to enter certain boss location, you should be able to do it. So there's more fixes for mapworks and Fuzzier later on in the patch notes, which we would mention. There's some changes to cinematics. Hivid Frontier first time cinematic, Econog Frontier first time cinematics, those have been added, and they fixed some Xbox One corruption during certain cinematics, and fix the distance outer cinematic from playing again if the character re-enters the boss arena, and added some other stuff like lights on the first cinematic to brighten darker areas. Then there's changes to towns. They've added some text to Imperial Pest Control Researcher, fixed Kianik from appearing where they shouldn't, and fixed the rocking chair, etc. in Maktarskov. There's also many more fixes for story, mapworks, Fazir zones, which I'll not list because the list is huge. And you can see the full patch notes for details, but basically almost every zone in the story in the quest from Act 1, 2 and 3 has gotten some sort of fixes and tweaks. Now let's move on to something interesting, items and gear. So there's fixed an issue where high with paste currency item takes a while to vote in the material textures, appears grey initially. Then yeah, some other general fixes, I'm not gonna mention everything, but this is interesting. Fixed an issue where ridiculous gear work buff does not apply in combat while in party. So basically while you were in a party on ridiculous, that 20% gear work bonus was not getting applied to you or your teammate while you're in combat, only while you're outside of a combat zone. Then they've also increased the drop rate for legendary gear at higher levels, which means 46 and higher on the higher difficulties. And there's a clarification. This is a bit more for painful, a bit more of a significant change for ridiculous difficulty than for painful or hard. But we did at least increase the rate a bit for those as well. So ridiculous is getting a more significant change, painful and hard are getting some increase, not as significant as ridiculous. And that's for 46 plus zones. So pretty nice, 46 plus items would be dropping more, so hopefully this sorts the problems me and many others have been complaining about when it comes to drops. Now moving on to consumables, they added gear and goblins gift bundles only available in multiplayer boxes on Halloween weekend. I'm not sure what multiplayer boxes on Halloween weekend means. What are those boxes? How do we get them? So many questions this thing raises. And also one of the things I mentioned in the beginning, something I'm so excited about, you can now buy Respectacles at a vendor for 2500 gold. And amazing change. That means by increasing the gold cap, as I heard, someone mentioned the gold cap is raised from 20k to 25k. That would mean if it's 25k we can get 10 Respectacles for a full gold cap. If it remains 20k, that's 8 Respectacles, which is still a good number of Respectacles for a full gold cap. And I really love this change. I'm a person who constantly switches builds and respecs, so kudos and thank you for that. They reduced the drop rate of life bound scrolls, so you're not sitting on so many of them, from a 1 in 20 chance to 1 in 40 chance, so you're gonna be getting life bound scrolls half as often. It's not a bad change. It seems like a major change, but it's not a bad change, because right now we're still getting a ton of Wifebound scrolls to the point where we were just saving them and selling them for gold because it costs 60 per scroll. So I would say don't be afraid of this. You're still gonna be getting Wifebound scrolls, and if you need Wifebound scrolls you can always do a Nether Beast, Phase Beast map. Then they did something like this, fixed Nether Boom disappearing upon interacting with it. They also did this change, renamed Liquid Courage consumable item to Nether Boom Nectar. Then affixes, changes to affixes, something important for me at least. Fix the formatting of the stat for bleed, burn, shock and poison damage over time affixes in the stats menu, so they now show as % of weapon damage instead of just an unformatted value. Yeah, they used to say % of base damage instead of % weapon damage. So good there to make it clear. Then skill enhancing affixes in the normal affix pool have been greatly improved, now offering bonuses to relic skills, increased values on bosses, on bonuses and more types of bonuses. So basically almost all the affixes maybe are getting some improvements, and it's super nice to see that there's now more bonuses to relic skills. Bonuses to relic skills would be great. I would love myself some extra damage to the drain equivalent skills, or to the sword smash equivalent skills, or to other things. And I love things like duration to certain auras and cost reduction, maybe cooldown reduction to the shield, to the barrier skills like Ice Shield, Living Barrier, Poison Nova. So let's see what those are when we play and stream tonight. Then they fixed the Herman's Masterwork legendary affix not functioning. I had no idea it was not functioning. It was working on my end. I mean, it was doing those extra explosions, so maybe this has been fixed some time ago, but they're just now mentioning that it was fixed. They've disabled cooldown reduction for Luminous Run affix, does not function properly with charges and other movement skills, do not have cooldown reduction available. Alright, makes sense, now that this skill some time ago has been changed to a charges one. It makes sense to balance things that way. So freeze, immobilize, stun and blind chances duration have been lowered across the board. Okay, I guess I guess that's kind of something that was coming. They've added 3 missing skill modifier affixes to the affix table: Forge cooldown, Co-Launch and Vortex Bomb and Sharpshooter duration onslaught. So this is an amazing change. Co-Launch and Vortex Bomb cooldown affixes. Vortex Bomb cooldown affixes are back. We can now make that Vortex Bomber build. I used to play a Vortex Bomber build in the alpha. I used to love it. I used to love getting my Vortex Bomb cooldown to 0 or 0.8 or 1 second. So I can just spam it often. Hello again, Crusader, not Crusader, but Condemned Crusader builds. So with the Forged and the Vortex Bomb cooldown stacking, you would be able to have that build playstyle that looks like the Condemned Crusader of Diablo 3. Pretty nice, and duration for Onslaught might be something super strong, because the skill keeps doing damage as long as it's there. So you can end up stacking 2, 3, maybe 4 of those with enough reloads, maybe even 6, if the duration is long enough. In one place. The problem is you can't keep the monsters there for a long time because, well, Sacrifice to Goose is not it's not a sucky skill. But if you combine the duration for Onslaught with Vortex Bomb cooldown from your teammate can keep pulling the enemies inside the Onslaught if they try to go out of it. Okay, now moving on to gear. Ghost Pets summoned by the Ancient One's token now was their full duration. Address the bug with Shasta's Promise Sharpshooter legendary to make it deal additional damage through Shasta. I'm not understanding this, maybe it was doing damage where it shouldn't, extra damage. Then they marked the towns as valid to provide secondary defense affixes of any element so that the gamer can give you useful gear for the endgame in any town after you have finished the story. Pretty good change here. They fixed an issue where the Poison Shrine VFX is displayed over the character's head when using the Mountain King's gauntlets. Then they fixed an issue with the Dusk Mage set, Celestial Pauldron set bonus not functioning. I never noticed this. I've been seeing the extra nether links. Maybe that was another change that has been done earlier and we're just now seeing it as a patch notes. See, this change is amazing. Firestarter's fireball damage increased to 80%, weapon damage up from 40. This was very underwhelming. Maybe only good in the early levels, but now this might be something fun to consider on basic attack builds with the Sword Smash, Egg of Mayhem kind of combo. Now, item affixes that grant skill levels should now grant the skill if needed. And this is a major change. This means that if you have an item that gives you +3 skill levels in Sword Smash, for example, you would get the Sword Smash skill without needing to put a point inside it. Until now, you needed to have at least 1 point into a skill to be able to use that skill. With this change, you can be kind of a little bit better off. You wouldn't need to put 1 point into a certain skill to get the bonus and to get the skill itself. So if you want that tier 1 bonus that you get by putting 3 points into a certain skill, for example, let's say you want to go Busting Charge tier 1, you don't want the tier 2. You get an item, for example, helmet that gives you +3 points to Busting Charge, and that means you don't have to put a single point there, and that means you're not wasting 1 point by getting this at level 4. You will still get it at level 3 and get the skill to be able to use it. So hope this explained it well enough to everyone. There's other changes to the neckband of poison warding that did not give the poison damage immunity. People have been talking to me about this, and I thought it maybe was intended to not work against everything. So this now it is gonna be giving you immunity to all types of poison damage. Then tight breeches, common item, shard blade, rare item, and hardened miner's boots, magic item, were coded incorrectly to appear as legendary drops on the minimap. They no longer will. Then there's new icons, SFX and VFX for the new legendary items, and as I mentioned at the start, added the following legendary items that can only be found in the Fazir's dungeon: Lightning Bower, Sword of the Lost Legion, Ancient Ember Helm, Ancient Ember Shoulders, Pants, Gloves, Chest and Boots and Threads and Hatch. So those 6 set pieces, including the 2 from the forge that replace the pants and the boots, which would be the hatch and the threads, those together with the 2 new items, you would be able to farm in the Fazir, and they're amazing, and I can't wait to get my hands on them to test some builds with them and to see all of their affixes. We do know some info about them. We do know that the shoulder would refill your energy and energy charge. So from 0 to 100 energy on the blue bar, and on the yellow charge bar from 0 to 200 every 60 seconds when you use the shoulders. But of course you have to sacrifice a skill bar slot to use it, so it's not that overpowered, but it's pretty nice. Then the Musketeer Gloves summon now uses the correct weapon and animation. Now, a few things about the Legendarium still. Fixed issue with the text running off the description area. Fixed an issue where the new legendary skill slot notification icon appears when hovering over the edges of the remaining icons displayed at the upper right corner of the screen. Understandable. Enchanting changes, nerfed enchanting recipe drop rate. I'm actually a big fan of this. I wish they would come up with a script that makes it so that you don't get recipes that you've already learned, because they really clutter that consumable inventory. And more about consumables and what they need to do there maybe some other time, but I would really hope they make all sorts of consumables stackable, especially the ones from contracts. They fixed the Hivit Scrapper recipe. They fixed a typo in the name of the Hivit Large Armor. They added essence drop models for the new Fazir affix. They fixed an issue where the O enchanting slots are full prompt was not updated respectively, and they lowered the minimum level for enchanting recipes to drop from 47 to 46, so they can drop in the first Fazir dungeon. Now moving on to contracts. 2 new spooky fort decorations have been added to each contract. See the list below in the fort section for details, is what they're saying, and yeah, we will go through that later. They fixed an issue where players could not navigate to the contracts menu after unlocking a high level reward, scrolling all the way to the end, then closing and reopening the menu. Contract banners are now higher resolution, and they also fixed an issue where after switching contracts they displayed the displayed amount of fame always refers to the contract that has been chosen when the player has entered the game. Then moving on to quests. Fixed an issue where area quests would not be added if the quest service takes too long to return quest progress. Then there's some objective stuff. I'm not gonna talk about all of them, but in general increase the drop chance for all Mapworks Fazir quests. This would hopefully fix all the problems we had with certain quests. Some of those mentioned in the list, you should be seeing those on your screen right now. So decreasing the required count and reducing the spiders required and other enemies required to kill. In general, less enemies needed to kill, less items needed to loot to finish those quests. So hopefully this now once and forever finishes and fixes everything regarding those quests that were making them unable to complete. So yeah, let's move on to text and UI. They've updated certain things quest related in the UI, and yeah, you should be seeing that on your screen right now. Now I think next it's time to move on to forts. So forts, general fort changes. Fixed an issue where the fort save could fail to vote if a prop was saved with an uninitialized trait value. So they now vote default fort if the fort server votes too slowly. Okay, so there's fixes to camera behavior in the fort. Fixed an issue where you can't edit your fort if you start at the zoomed enough view, and there's also fixes for an issue where the highlighted object's outline is still visible after changing tabs in the fort inventory. There's also personal forts no longer being able to change a player's default town, and they added a title element for Travel Passage on the hut. Updated various NPCs in the passages with names and bubble text, and they've added NPCs to idle around fort passages, which is pretty interesting and fun. There's also potential fix for an issue where players were unable to see their fort props but could still enter the fort on Xbox, and they moved fort edit button on top of the screen, which is pretty nice. Then decorations. They fixed an issue where wardrobe items were lost after the player leaves the fort and returns to it. They added the new icons for the new spooky fort decorations. They added the following spooky fort decorations. Adventurer's Contract. From there you can get the Faceless Orator and the Tombstone. You can also get the Homesteader's Contract rewards, being the wooden coffin and the cemetery stone wall. And from the Craftsman Contract you can get Witch's Table and the Skull Gate. They also fixed for no sound effects being played after placing training dummy in the fort, and there's also they increased the training dummy limit from 1 to 4 so players can test AoE skills. Pretty decent. Then the Work Tree now has a similar hold time option to the sacrifice items, like destroying an item. I really hope they didn't make the legendary time, the sacrifice hold time as long as legendary gear, because yeah, it's too long for certain things. Pets and general for the pets. They fixed the Valiant Glitter Sprite portrait to be the correct one. Okay, I actually reported that during the PTR testing. For this patch, they fixed an issue where pet covers stored in a wardrobe appear as unequipable. Fixed an issue where your pet can disappear upon changing location using waypoint. So I guess that's what people were referring to. Adding portraits for 4 new pet variations. They added 3 new pet variations as well. Midnight Cat, Spooky Retriever, Dragon Link Spirit, all of them can now be found randomly in pet cages. They added the Extra Life Alpaca. This will only be available to those who donate to the 2020 Extra Life fundraising campaign, which should be coming soon. There's no information exactly when, but it should be coming when the Extra Life fundraising campaign day will be. There will be a 24-hour stream on the official Torchlight 3 Twitch channel, twitch.tv/play Torchlight, and devs and various other people from the team would be there fundraising for the charity, the Extra Life charity. So they will now show the pet type on Windows that should provide that info. They also fixed an issue where the pet's preview is not always displayed when the player rescues a pet from the pet cage. The pet glitter sprite now lands next to the player in the character select and not behind the pillar. Glitter sprites now do not use perch, and they also fixed the missing countdown timer from the pet inventory when pet has fled. Moving on to Fazir's Dungeon. General fixes for the Fazir Dungeon. There's a few, but the important one would be increase the bonus monster damage by challenge dungeon level, starting at 1% at level 16 instead of 0.02, increasing all the way to 47% at level 251 instead of the current cap, which is 1.68% at level 100, and not going higher. So meaning, for now, at the moment, before this patch, you're getting no more than 1.68% damage increase for the monsters, and this caps at level 100. After the patch you would be getting up to 47% monster damage, this caps at level 251. Um, Again, this is something that seemed like a bug to me ever since launch. So 0.02 increase seems like a very big nerf from 0.5 per level, and I guess they meant to make it 0.2, but they added an extra 0 before the 2, and now they're moving it to 0.2 roughly. 0.2 is roughly what gets you 47% damage at 251. So yeah, I guess they just wanted to make it that way. So now, made the difficulty more distinct on the hut. Champions no longer spawn in Fazir's dungeon with the Gauntlet affix. So that's interesting. I'm wondering if they're gonna make a change to uniques spawning with what's it called, with dividing, and dividing spawning with uniques, because that's the one that's actually overpowered, not the Gauntlet affix with the Fame one, with the champions. Speaking of this, it's really weird right now how you can leave a map. You can leave a map and then be able to do the exact same affixes. This can be abused, this can be exploited for the wrong reasons, and I'm wondering if this is the way they intended the game to be played. Someone to do a map without finishing it, just finishing the monsters, not killing the boss, and then exiting and redoing the exact same map without the affixes changing. I'm wondering if that's intended. Probably it's not intended, probably they just never thought of it that way. So I know many of you probably would want it to stay this way, but is it ethical for people to abuse it? Remains a question. I personally think it shouldn't be, but others might think that's their only way to get gear. And if that's your only way to get gear, then there's something wrong with the way of getting gear. So hopefully with the increase of the drop rates, we no longer need to abuse certain things, such as repeating the same map over and over, because it's the only one that gives us as many items as we need. Now, moving on to affixes, they now prevent Infamous and Gauntlet from being applied to the same challenge dungeon card option. But again, as I spoke, that's not the most buggy one. There's other things such as uniques, uniques with dividing, or dividing with uniques on the same card option, or on the card, including the one from the built-in challenges. When the built-in challenge is uniques, you get a dividing, or vice versa. Okay. I'm not gonna mention everything here, you're gonna see it in your screen, but again, added the beneficial challenge dungeon affix essential, as I mentioned, and they've added the negative one that I mentioned at the start. Then there's added a random 4 decoration bundle from the bosses for the Harvest Waki challenge dungeon affix. Something again that seems pretty interesting as a change. And yeah, let's move on to relics. It's time to move on to relics. They've added new relic legendary gear icons, and added a relic icon to the relic hut progress bar, and added a new relic description entry with icons to the skill description tooltip. Both tooltips for the relic hut elements now show the proper numbers for the current energy levels. Then Cold Hard. They revised the tier bonus next for Ice Shield to correctly text for Ice Shield to correctly refer to Ice Shield and not Ice Barrier. I was wondering when that will happen. They adjusted the Ice Golem base damage to 150% weapon damage, matching the tooltip description. So I'm not sure what the damage was before that the Golem was doing, but I hope that it now actually does good damage. I really hope that the Golem does more damage now. Electrode's Chaotic Strikes tier 1 bonus now correctly fires 3 storms instead of 2. Amazing. This is making a strong skill even stronger now as a fix. I can be happier. Pardon me. I can be happier about this change. Then Flaming Destroyer. Fix the tooltip error in the barrier skill for Flaming Destroyer's Nimble Flames. Not sure what that is, but okay. Bud Drinker fixed it, so Bud Drinker's Bud Seeker tier 1 milestone now heals as it says. I'm wondering if it was healing more or less. They don't mention. They fixed the tier 2 of the Spinning Blade skill that did not apply the bleed effect to enemies. Amazing, thanks. Bleeding builds would love this. They fixed the Bud missiles from Bud Seeker's incorrect tooltip. Um, Wait, wasn't that the same as the first patch note I just read for Blood Drinker? In any case, yeah, that's it for the Blood Drinker. Let's go to Bane. They added final Bane icon for enhanced activation. Fixed an issue where leveling the Venomous Maw skill does not increase its damage over time. And see, this one is a little bit weird. Fixed an issue where Fanged Maw was using the wrong skill for the spider on the tier 2 milestone. I think they mean the Venomous Maw. The Spectral Spider, so not the Venomous Maw but the Spectral Spider. So I think this is fixed an issue where Spectral Spider's summon was using the wrong skill for the spider on the tier 2 milestone, which was the spreading projectiles, poison projectiles. Then they fixed it so Bane Spectral Spider now does poison attacks with its tier bonus. And they addressed an issue where Bane minions were not getting the bonus from the Puppet Master passive. Keep in mind, this says Bane minions, not all minions, just the Bane minions. So just the spiders, like Spiderlings, the Queen, the Spectral Spider, those are the ones that were not getting this bonus. So anything like Train, Ancestral Spirits, automatons that explode, like Explodobots, Netherlings, Shasta Goblins, and all of those were getting the bonuses and still will be. They edited the tooltip for Spiderlings to make it accurately reflect how the passive functions. And this brings us to monsters. I'm not gonna talk about it much. There's a lot of changes to a lot of things, but I'm gonna just say some of the main things. Reduced monster hit points on painful and ridiculous difficulty from levels 2 to 20 to give you more time to progress and build up damage dealing skills, gear, etc. This should help the feeling of a slog on the higher difficulties, especially against champions and bosses. Thank you very much for this change. I can't wait to test leveling a hero on ridiculous when I'm done with my current one. They fixed an issue where the minion quality champions were getting affixes like Stormbringer, and adjusted how they calculate per level damage bonuses for various minion skills and their tooltips. I really hope this increases the damage for things like anything that's not the train but is a minion. Right now anything that is not the train car on the Realm Master but is considered minion has been super underpowered. Shasta, Goblins, Netherlings, Explodobots, Goblin Hounds, what else am I missing? The Ancestral Spirits, all of those were doing pretty shitty damage compared to the train cars, and summoner builds in general were feeling pretty underwhelming compared to builds that get their damage from not direct summoner damage. Okay, so reduce the damage from the Netherwell missiles from 150 of monster damage to 50% of monster damage. Thank you very much. No more random one-shots from Netherwells. And they increased the drop chance for legendary items from champions and bosses. Thank you very much for this. Now there's some more things about affixes and things like that, and there's changes to mobs, etc. I'm not gonna talk about those. You can read it on the screen, you can read it in the patch notes. Then there's changes to bosses. Phase dungeon bosses are now picked based on the area that you are in. Only big bosses that you would have defeated before gaining access to the area in which you defeat the boss can be encountered in the phase dungeons. Ordrak no longer appears in phase dungeons. Interesting. So yeah, there are some other fixes to certain bosses like Sadista, Strongtusk, Whitewalt, Sora, Shriekbeak, Squawkwow and Kronk. In regards to dungeons, phase beasts, etc. They fixed issues where Shriekbeak's Fighting Corp attack could deal damage multiple times. That's an interesting thing. And now there's changes to visuals. Again, full list in the patch notes. I'm not gonna mention those. And finally, this brings us to classes and skills for dessert. General changes: they added parameterized damage reduction, effectively making the trait multiplicative. This prevents some instances of invincible builds. But see, they don't specify which damage reduction is this referring to. Is that damage reduction from things like Hammer Spin, like Fighter Spirit, like Living Barrier, like Skittering Shoulders? Is it that type of damage reduction, or is it the damage reduction that defense gives us to a certain elemental resistance, or is it the damage reduction that certain skills like Rizzi and Pipi do? They do not specify which type of damage reduction, and those are 3 different types of damage reduction, so I'm wondering which this one was referring to. Then they fixed an issue where chained beams from certain skills stick around forever, single player only. For this bug, the menu now remembers the last open tab when entering the skills menu mode. I really love this change. They made the thumb fail sound when you can't cast something softer, pretty decent. Now moving on to the classes one by one, starting with Sharp Shooter. They fixed an issue where unlocking the tier 1 bonus of the Sacrifice to Goose skill does not grant additional damage vulnerability on enemies. Thank you for this, appreciate the change. Adjusted the icon for Sacrifice to Goose, okay. They fixed an issue where leveling Ghost Visage does not increase the critical chance that is granted after using the skill. But see, okay, it's good that they fixed this, but does this still stop at 40% crit chance and not go over the cap? Or can we now go over the 40% crit chance cap? Because if this can go over the 40% crit chance cap, then why hasn't Snowstorm tier 3 been fixed? And why haven't other things that give us crit chance have not been fixed to be able to go over the cap? I know they're working on that, last I heard from them regarding those things, working on a way to get certain skills to go over the cap, but this one doesn't mention whether the skill would be able to go over the 40% crit chance cap. And this gives you 50% crit chance, so would I be able to now get my crit chance to 90% if I already have 40%, or would that 50% be still only going over to 40 and be kind of useless to be 50 for now? Fixed an issue where the tier 1 bonus of revolt reduced the cost of charge based skills. Okay, understandable nerf here, it's not supposed to do it in any case. Then Scout's Bones now deals poison damage instead of the player's weapon element type. Okay, interesting. And Herman Spirit uses the Sharpshooter Bow idle animation instead of the melee weapon idle, makes sense. Fixes to Dusk Mages, added a tooltip to the DM Mana Bow. I still see that tooltip, so I'm not sure when it was missing. Maybe that has been added long ago, they're just now mentioning it. Fixed an issue where tier 1 Absolver milestone was disabling the harmonic form bonus. Thank you for fixing this. Fixing Light Spear so it heals only when in harmonic form, makes sense. That's how it's designed to be. Fixed an issue where Consecration's 35% damage bonus didn't apply, it's straight. Okay, good change. Other fixes for when other people were in the team and they were not seeing your own entropy and only you were seeing it. Then removed Errant String in harmonic form, mouse solver, okay. Fixed an issue where damage dealt by the Miasma skill caused both dark and light bars of the Dusk Mage to be charged with affected entering the harmonic form. Okay, that's interesting. And then they fixed a bad copy paste in the skill table that was breaking Holy Fury. So does that mean that Holy Fury would now do more damage? I'm excited to see what they're doing with Holy Fury, what this bug means. Was it making Holy Fury stronger? Was it making Holy Fury weaker? Was it making it not able to cast at all? It's not really clear. But in any case, they've also added 0.5 second cooldown to Luminous Run for real this time to prevent accidental double casts. Now moving on to Forged. Buffed servo-driven uppercut from 180 to 200% weapon damage, thank you, pretty nice. Servo-driven uppercut now costs 12 hit and it is tier 1 bonus. Its tier 1 bonus is changing from doubling stun chance to when the stun triggers deals damage twice with a giant fist, which is pretty interesting as a way of how it works. Then the Forged Brower 3 skill unlocks have been changed, but this already changed with the previous patch on October 6th. I'm not sure why this exists in those patch notes again, but some people might have missed it. But yeah, Fracking Strike is now a tier 3 bonus, Power Projection tier 4, Cyclone Mode tier 5. This means when you get your first high hit generator uppercut, you also have a third vent option available. The weaker but reliable anytime venter. Which is Fracking Strike. They fixed shotgun blast flaming projectile from the tier 3 bonus that did not deal any damage. Thank you for this. They fixed an issue where leveling the poison dart skill did not increase the damage over time, which is applied to the enemies that are standing in the poison spot. Thanks for this too. Fixed an issue where the display information for Forge, Servo-Driven Uppercut and Slugshot listed incorrect scaling types. Both skills have always scaled up their damage per point, but were displaying stun chance and crit hit chance respectively. Okay, thanks for that. Furnace Blast tier 3 bonus makes the skill use a larger cone skill shape. Pretty decent. And they fixed an issue where the tier 3 bonus of the power projection skill did not give invulnerability, and they've edited Rapid Strikes tooltip to reflect that it hits 3 times by default, not 4. Moving on to Realm Master for dessert. Realm Master's late track tier 3 milestone duration increased to 10 seconds up from 3 seconds, which is a huge increase, and I would consider using this tier 3 bonus now. It actually seems somewhat very useful because of its piercing and Kono spread on proc monster builds like Electrode, Lightning Strike builds with the train. Because each of those would be piercing and be able to proc, and that's for 10 seconds. Pretty decent. Then they fixed an error where blasting charge damage vulnerability tier 1 bonus was a multiplier instead of additive, so that's pretty nice that it's fixed now. They fixed the tier 2 of the blasting charge skill that did not have any effect. I never noticed this not having effect. Maybe the tooltip was saying it has an effect, but it really didn't, so good to know. They fixed an issue where blasting charge tier 3 bonus explosion spawned by the player instead of by the first explosion. We've been waiting for this to get fixed for a long time with some of my Struckweb viewers, the Struckweb members, and yeah, thank you for fixing this. They fixed the tier 1 of the Torque Swing skill that did not have any effect. Pretty interesting, I might test some Torque Swing builds. They fixed an issue where the Realm Master's Torque Spin triggered on cooldown effects such as Battery Ram twice. And I'm not sure why they're saying Torque Spin. I'm assuming they mean the Torque Swing, not Hammer Spin or Torque Spin, but yeah. They edited the Realm Master Shocking Round skill. In the process of adding milestones, we removed the Lightning Strikes from above, from the base activation, and moved it to the tier 3 milestone. However, we forgot to replace this with the intended active portion to the skill. Now the Chain Lightning strikes an additional target when active, 2 by default, with an additional target struck when the tier 1 milestone is achieved. They fixed an issue where the endurance regeneration portion of Shocking Rounds didn't function. And they edited Pound's endurance bonus buff tooltip to reflect that it does 30% bonus to attack speed and damage for basics, not 50%. They add a small delay to the Pound skill tier 3 bonus to make it more obvious that it's happening, and removed the functions that were not working on Lantern Flash, resulting in non-functioning bonuses to its duration. To get notified when I upload more content like this or similar for this game or other games like it, such as Wooters of all varieties, you could subscribe to my channel, hit the bell button to not miss out on notifications, and optionally you can even join as a member of the Struckweb and get access to emotes, badges or other perks such as private tutorials and things like that. And I would like to use this part of the video to thank the people who are currently YouTube members of the Struckweb. Thanks for watching this video, keep it cool, and until next time, Struckweb. Goodbye.